Hi, I'm Bob Hasegawa, your state senator for the 11th Legislative District, here to give you another quick update on what's been going on here in Olympia during this legislative session. So we're just past the House of Origin cutoff, which means that any bill that hopes to get passed by the full legislature this legislative session needs to have passed out of its House of Origin, i.e. my Senate bills need to have passed out of the Senate by yesterday. So we did take one significant action which will impact every school district in the state as our last act before cutoff. And that was to pass the levy cliff bill. That bill is Senate Bill 5023, sponsored by Senator Wellman of the 41st District, which is like Mercer Island and Bellevue area. But had we not passed that bill, that means that all of the school districts would have lost access to a significant portion of the levy money that you have already approved as voters for those districts. So, for example, Seattle School District would have lost almost $46 million. Renton School District would have lost $9.2 million. Tukwila would have lost $142,000. And just as a side note, the 11th District has 7 school districts within its borders. Tahoma School District would have lost $747,000, Highline $13.5 million, Issaquah $9.9 million, and Kent $20.7 million. So because we were not able to act even a week ago on fixing this, what we call a levy cliff, many school districts had started to issue their pink slip notices to their teachers, which is really not fair to the teachers, not fair to the districts, not fair to our children and families who have to plan for next year. So I'm glad, though, that we were finally able to get this bill passed as our last act last night. On other things, I've gotten some feedback on a vote that I took on Senate Bill 5001, which was to create district-wide voting for the Sound Transit Regional Authority. Now, some people call this an attack against Sound Transit, which I definitely don't view it as an attack against Sound Transit. I view it as trying to promote some accountability within the leadership of Sound Transit. For example, when we as a legislature granted Sound Transit taxing authority to build out the light rail system in our transportation budget a couple years ago, that budget was supposed to have been about $15 billion, which we gasped at the price tag. $15 billion is a lot of money. That's almost half of our statewide budget, actually, if you want to use it as a means of comparison. But we thought at that time that, well, we've got to do something about traffic, and light rail seems to be one of the better solutions out there as far as solving the traffic congestion problem within the greater Seattle and East Side corridors. So we granted that authority despite the fact that it was using regressive tax sources and revenue sources to fund most of that Sound Transit, sales tax, for instance. So when that ballot issue finally made it to the voters, it had expanded from the $15 billion that we were gasping at to now $54 billion. Now, to me, to expand their taxing authority over tripling it, I view as having been misleading, but I'm not sure that I would have been totally supportive of going after all of that money from regressive sources like sales tax and MVET and that sort of thing. So the point is, we should have been told what we were voting on if that was going to be the case. I feel that we needed to have built in some accountability into the leadership of Sound Transit, and so I supported the bill. On other notes, I wanted to talk about another issue coming before the legislature. There is still a bill alive. There was a companion bill. I'm changing subject now, by the way. There's a community of Pacific Islanders from the Marshall Islands in our community. Their islands were used as testing facilities for the United States nuclear weapons program. So their islands were subjected to hundreds of nuclear tests, and even the people, some of them purposefully exposed to the radiation just so the government could measure some of the impacts. Well, you can imagine how I feel about that, but at any rate, many of those Marshallese were allowed to relocate to the United States and granted permanent resident status. The problem is we would not cover their health care costs. So there's a bill to bring justice to this situation. It's Senate Bill 5683 and the companion bill is House Bill 1291. Well, the Senate bill died in Ways and Means. Apparently, the Ways and Means Committee was not willing in total to support the Marshallese. But the House bill is still moving, so we're anticipating hearing the House bill here since it's post-cutoff now. And I'm hoping that we can do something to support the Marshallese community here with some justice and fairness for the destruction, basically, of their homeland. So unfortunately, that bill only passed out of the House with a 51-47 vote. You would think that there would be more sense of social conscience about that, but it was strictly on party lines coming out of the House. The Democrats, 51, voted for it, and the Republicans, 47, voted against it. So I'm not sure what success we'll have to bring justice for the Marshallese community, which is in large part centered within the 11th District. But I'm hoping that we will be able to bring some justice for that community. So at any rate, going on kind of long, but I appreciate your watching this update, and be sure to contact my office if you have any questions about any of the issues that are moving along now or what may not have moved along at this point. Again, I'm Bob Hasegawa, your state senator from the 11th Legislative District, and thanks for watching.